Welcome back to another episode of the Line podcast. I'm your host, DJ Scotty Two Dotty. And today we got the end of the year wrap up, the last Wisdom Wednesday of the year. And today's title for today's video is going to be Discipleship, Realigned, Refined, and Surrendered. But before we dive into today's video, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment, share, do all your due diligence. And if you would like to see me DJ, if you are in the Michiana area or in the South Bend area on a Thursday night, or who knows, on a weekend, you may see me doing my ones and twos. Or if you would like to book me, please check the description of this video if you would like to book me for any event. The prices are going to inflate come 2026. So be mindful of that. And those prices are non-negotiable. So with that being said, let's dive into the last Wisdom Wednesday of 2025. It's going to be a very long video. Perhaps it's going to be very long-winded because I'm recapping the entire year. So some people may have to watch this in segments. Some people may no, I'm not gonna sit here and watch this, for a whole hour. That's fine. Um, is this is something that is going to be meant for who is meant for, and I'm grateful that God has used me throughout this entire year to really do His will and reflect His image. It's been a very challenging year, probably outside of 2017, when I became a father. It's probably been the most difficult year because a lot of refining, realignment, and surrendering was at the apex of this year. God made it a non-negotiable. It was not my will to be done this year at all. It was His will and His will alone. This year, I feel like if I was not anchored to God, wouldn't that's well, yeah, I would probably been checked out this year or done something stupid or relapse on old habits, something dire would have probably happened, or worst case scenario would have happened. And I'm not exaggerating for views. I'm not exaggerating to hype up. The challenging year is being transparent, is being um, open with what this year entailed. Because it definitely entailed a lot of sacrifice, a lot of realigning, and a lot of refining, and allowing God to work in me. And just to kind of give more deeper detail, I try to always kind of give definition to or give context to certain titles of the video. Some titles may be self-explanatory, but I would love to always dive deep into what these topics and what these titles are. So, first things first, let's just go with discipleship and what that is and what that looks like from a standpoint of definition. Because people love to put their own spin on what discipleship is. I know for me, discipleship is daily surrendering to God's image, to God's will, and mirroring who He is daily. And God had really put that in the forefront of this year. But let's go with let's just look up what the definition. If you just type in on Google discipleship, right? So the AI overview says discipleship is the lifelong journey of following Jesus Christ, learning His teaching and becoming more like Him in character, involving spiritual growth, intentional relationships, and teaching others to do the same, as commanded by Jesus by His to spread the gospel. It is a dynamic process of transformation, not just information, happening through guidance, mentorship, studying scripture, and modeling behavior, often within small groups or close relationships to achieve spiritual maturity and help others find faith. So that's kind of like a little overview. And some key activities is studying the Bible, praying together, fellowshipping, modeling Christ-like behavior, sharing the gospel, and leading others to faith. And then the second half of that is the refined, realigned, and surrendered aspect of today's video. So the if you just type in these three, refined, realigned, and surrendered into Google, something like this will pop up. The terms refined, realigned, surrendered are often used together in a spiritual or self-help context to describe a process of personal transformation. This process generally involves letting go of self-will and worldly attachments to embrace a greater purpose or connection with a higher power. Um, the transformation process, refined. This refers to a period of per perfectification. I want to say I pronounced that right. Often involving trials or challenges, sometimes described as the refiner's fire, that brings impurities, negative habits, pride, and old ways of thinking to the surface to be removed. It is a process of being purified and having one's character strengthened, or realigned. This describes the act of returning to original purpose or blueprint. It means adjusting one's focus, desires, and actions to be in harmony with a perceived divine will or higher self. Often, after drifting off course, that can involve getting rid of clutter and distractions to achieve clarity. So, before I go to the last bullet point, I want to highlight something. When it says this describes the act of returning to the original purpose or blueprint, it means adjusting one's focus, desires, and actions to be in harmony with a perceived, defined will or higher self. One thing I want to highlight real quick, and I'm going to probably highlight this again throughout this video. Um, the whole concept of something being perceived or perspective, I know that is going to be debated into infinity. And I'm not meant to prove per se that God is real because I'm reflecting his image. So that by itself lets you know. So I don't have a perceived um divine will or of what God is doing. This is legitimate. This is genuine. This is an actual thing that's going on. But not to kind of veer off track, I just always want to weed out different interpretations of, and I get this is man-made interpretation, AI generated, but I always want to call that out because people love to um, put God in a vacuum as if he's or make him subservient. And in no context is he's ever going to be that in my eyes. So I always want to call that out forever and always. But going to the third bullet point of being surrendered. This is the foundational act of relinquishing control, power, and personal plans to a higher power, such as God, the universe, or one's higher self. So again, is only one higher power, and that's God. It's not the universe which God created. It's not a higher self. Is I'm not. People love to say we are all gods and this and third. Read your Bible, comprehend um, who God is. See who God is for yourself, and stuff like this wouldn't be auto generated to kind of mislead people into thinking that I'm gonna just put all my eggs in the basket of self or a higher self, or the stars or the horoscope, or science is one guy by itself. So it is. it is not a sign of weakness, but an act of strength and faith that allows peace and trust to enter one's life. Surrender allows for the refining and realigning process to take place without resistance. So to summarize, this sequence suggests a journey where a person is through surrender allows themselves to be refined by challenges and to then realign with a more meaningful, authentic life or spiritual path. It is a process of internal transformation that leads to lasting change and purpose. So, um, that's really been the theme of this year, really being refocus with who God is. And I started this year with the um prejudice way of thinking, and prejudice just means a preconceived notion of anything, not just a group of people. But I started this year thinking, well, I'm going to implement my non-negotiables. I'm going to be well known as a DJ, and all of all of the things that um we we as humans love to kind of start planning things because we feel as if like God is just going to co-sign with it. It's going to all fall into place because this is what I want. We sometimes, or most times, we skip the process of alignment. We skip the process of surrendering what we think is best, so that we can be um, realigned and surrendered completely to what God has asked us to do. Um, but his hand has really been heavy this year with his refining. I made a whole video about that. And once I left Amazon, and I started the year thinking that I'm going to implement my non-negotiables, boundaries going to be heavier, and this, that, and the third. And all of the prideful things that we look to kind of implement without really context, without asking God to show us the humble way. It's okay to set boundaries for yourself, but doing it in a prideful way, doing it in a non-negotiable way without God's guidance is going to be prideful. It's going to lead to, when somebody violates that, you're going to act out. You're going to, be, I told you, and it's going to be a back and forth, and that's when the foolish energy starts to surface. So, you know, I had to deal with laying down my will, laying down what I initially intended for this year to look like. Because I go into each year kind of with a theme, but at the same time, it's just like, you know, things happen. Life happens that makes you switch beats and change lanes, with certain things that go on. But also, this has been the hardest year of my marriage as well. So things have happened in my marriage that has made me um really be humbled, really be surrendered. Um and it's an ongoing process. If any man has a wife that has childhood trauma, who has childhood anger, or has been a victim of any type of assault, whether it be sexual or physical assault, in other relationships, or deals with lady issues or anything of that nature. You know how difficult sometimes the seasons of marriage can get. And sometimes throughout, prior to like this year, it was a uphill battle. It was I had to get my point across, because in my previous marriage, It was toxic. I was ran over. I was not heard. I was not seen. I was not visible, and my pride was bruised. My ego, my dignity was depleted, and a lot of arguments in my current marriage stems from I would not let that happen again. I would not let nobody that I lay with, that I sleep, next to every night disrespect me. So I kind of had that part of my non-negotiable list because I wanted to be aligned with husband, wife, well, God, husband, wife, child. I wanted to be in perfect, alignment with having order, establishing things the way God, author it to be established. And one thing that I want any married man or any man that's in a very serious relationship or engaged to really comprehend that your marriage is just that, your marriage. It's every marriage is unique. Every marriage has its own issues, its own image that should be of God that it has to get to in order to be in perfect alignment to reflect it. When you got married to that person, or if you're going to get married to somebody, or got married this year or going to next year, um, you have to comprehend that saying "I do" don't erase trauma. It don't erase hurt. It don't erase triggers. It don't erase things that are familiar. It don't erase toxic relationships with family or friends. It don't erase none of the things that you think. What it does do, it puts you in covenant. It puts you in relationship with God. Instead of him using one person for his image, he now has two people as one in a trinity, um, that he can use to reflect his image, to spread the gospel to and one that can be obedient to him. And I had to learn that this year really the hard way, because we got into a real serious spat at the beginning of this year that wouldn't say ended, would have ended the marriage, but it put the marriage in perspective, and it put it in a in a rocky state momentarily, and it caused me to do some reflecting. It caused me to be in the midnight hour crying, in the midnight hour confused, and in the midnight hour I decided to surrender um, to God's will. Decided to give my marriage, and not just my marriage, but trying to fix things within my wife to God. And that has been an ongoing process throughout this whole year. But I have to. I have to. If I love my wife and if I'm going to be in discipleship, I have to. It's difficult. It's difficult because the man in me, the ego, the pride wants to fix it all. It wants to, let me, it's not for me. Like I had to surrender my will. I have to also surrender that none of that I experience throughout this life is supposed to be for my benefit. And only the really trained disciples can really get this next part of the surrender piece. Um, when you lay down your will, it humbles you. It puts things in real deep perspective, because God said if you love him, you would put down your way, pick up your cross, and follow me. And throughout Jesus' life, he mimicked, not mimic. That's a horrible word to use, but he reflected God's image. He reflected humility. He reflected grace. He never condemned nobody. Now, did he check the Pharisees and the priests and all the clergy that was claiming to be holy and to be righteous? Absolutely, because if you're gonna preach or be called in my name, you have to reflect my image. So, in that aspect, it makes total sense. But um, he didn't condemn people who were seeking him. He didn't condemn people who were just broken. And he raised the dead. He fed people. Even when Peter lacked faith on the water, he didn't let him drown. He asked him a question: why do you have little faith? Like, what happened? You know, God is he's close to the brokenhearted. And I really, really, really understood that this year, that he's close to the brokenhearted, that he's close to those who seek him, because there's nothing like having your spirit be in a familiar place and you felt as if you learned that lesson. And I'm speaking to so many people who's dealing with this issue of familiar spaces. It's preparation. You may have to go through the same thing, the refining process, so that you can be aligned with somebody, so that you can help them through their journey. It may be similar, a similar process. You may go through a similar process so that you can reach others. Though it's not wasted, and that's something else that I learned this year. There's no such thing as wasted refining, because it's uncomfortable. It's super uncomfortable to be humbled. It's super uncomfortable to almost feel like you're neglecting yourself. And me saying that it's not about me, or I don't matter. I don't feel depressed saying that. I don't feel like, man, you know, it's never going to be anything that makes me happy. It's never going to be anything that God set aside for me. I'm not saying that. But in the whole scheme of things, if I'm not reflecting God's image, if I'm not a disciplined, obedient disciple, my life is meaningless. Like, nothing that I do has meaning. It's all vanity. Same thing Solomon said. Um, um, and throughout the Psalms, you hear it through David as well. Like, things that we value the most, that we put work in front of relationships so heavy, it don't matter. Like, from the platforms that we have to just make content to make people laugh. That's cool and all. I mean, that's okay. Like, it's millions and trillions of funny people on the planet, but that's kind of like recess. Like, the fruit of the spirit is something that God is looking for. Are you reflecting who I am? And that's something that throughout this year, like, God has really humbled me, because there's been so many times where um I wanted to just give up, like, just crash out, cuss my wife out. When I was working at Amazon, just wanted not to come back to work, didn't want to work 10-hour days, or be in a place and space to where I'm not appreciated, or my hours being cut, or I'm getting routes that don't make sense, because it's uncomfortable. The refining it's uncomfortable. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's super uncomfortable, but it's necessary. It's super necessary, because in order for you to get to the next phase, in the next testimony, in the next person that God has called for you to align with, so that you guys both can iron sharpen iron, you have to go through that. God will never give you something prematurely. And if you get something prematurely, it's going to be preparation. It's not going to be what you think it is. If you give a kid a keys to a McLaren or a Hennessy or a Lambo, let's just say a 13-year-old, they're not going to be first. They're not even legal to drive. That's one, and then two, they don't grasp the concept of skill, or even let's just say like they do. Let's just say it's because I've seen videos where it's a kid driving a semi truck, right? But managing that speed, managing the skill set of a clutch, managing the the quick turns and all of that is premature. That's a premature blessing. That's a premature act of trying to get to where you need to be early. There's no such thing. God is outside of time. So he's already at where you're heading. You can't speed up God, you can't slow down God, you can't stop God off of whatever you think that you fall short of doing, or whatever you feel like you're doing so well at. It's all vanity. The grace, the mercy, the humility of the sacrifice at the cross is the only thing that makes us even remotely acceptable to be able to even be in the same realm. God is so awesome, because I have had moments throughout this year where I'm even like saying, man, like I don't think that, you know, if I was God, I don't think I would have made that sacrifice. I would not probably lay down like my life, but that's why God didn't put it in man's hands. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that he is love through and through. I'm grateful that he can use me, that he can call me spiritually, and I can pick up the phone and that I can be of service, because I'm not sure what next year may hold. I'm not sure about what my my marching orders would be, but I'm not making no plans for next year. I'm what what I am doing though. I am leaving certain habits. I am leaving certain things in this year. I'm not. My schedule is clear for next year. Whatever God needs me to do, I'm wholeheartedly. I'm running towards it, and it may be uncomfortable. It may be something that I don't understand at first. It may be something that I may not totally agree with. Whoop de doo. This is not about me. And this is something that I have learned this year so heavily. Things broke my heart, but it fixed my vision this year. Things made me uncomfortable. Things didn't make sense. Because it's still moments within um financial situations, as far as being a provider, whether you're using the if you're ride sharing, if you're a Uber driver, a Lyft driver, a DoorDasher, or if you're an independent contractor, or if you just work a regular 9 to 5, it's things that don't make sense. The inflation of this country don't make sense. All of the hidden agendas, the it don't make sense. But that's why it's written, lean not on your own understanding. A lot of this year could have been made easier if I had that mentality going into this year. And I have gotten so close to God this year. That is so amazing, because it was more so like using God as like a tool, like not in case of emergency, but it was more so like I have God, and I'm good. I didn't think about being in a relationship, being consistent, being present, being usable this year. I wasn't really thinking about that, and I dive deep into my Bible this year. Um, Started from Genesis, and I'm on Psalms, I want to say 102 right now. So about about 10 books in. I think about like 10, 12 books in or so, into like the Bible. Um, and I'm just thankful because even like what really made me say, okay, I'm surrendered, um, is that the spat I had with my wife. And it was difficult, because I didn't read the Bible as much, nowhere near it as I did this year, ever before. I called myself when I first got baptized reading like the Bible from front to back, but I was reading the King James version at a time where lust was very rampant, and I had two masters at that time, about around 16 or 18 years old, like through like that time period. um I had two masters at that time. I was not fully committed to the relationship, or having God in his perfect place and at the center of my life, like how like I do now. And when I finally opened my Bible, when I used the New Living Translation interpretation of God's word, it grabbed a hold of me. It grabbed a hold of me, and it has not let me go, and I'm not going to let it go, because that's where true transformation started for real, for real. Because I start seeing how the Bible is still active, it's still alive. The fall from the garden is still active. We're still being trying to be dispelled on what God has already said. We're trying to glamorize sin, and we're trying to make it um as if the serpent, as if the devil is not actively trying to knock you off the square. We try to um put it in a cute, cuddly way. Even the story of like Samson. I saw myself in my first marriage, through the story of Samson. Second Chronicles 18. I really like that book, in that because it highlights how disobedient we can be when God tells us to do something. And we want the approval of others, that has no substance, that is all vanity. People saying, yeah, do it, yeah, do it, yeah, do it, yeah, do it. People speaking truths that's not truth, or half truths, or truth that only you want to believe, and it can cost you your life, when somebody who has your best interest, or somebody who's God fearing. And we don't know at all. The disciples don't know at all, but we are keen. We are we are close. We are we are humble. We are useful. So the things that we say is not as we're all knowing. We are not God, but through trial and tribulation and surrendering and refining and realigning certain things, is just like it's better to take heed than to do it your own way. But again, nobody is forcing anybody to do anything. We just gonna give you the option, So um all 42 um verses of well, books of Job, um I highly recommend everybody to read Job at least once a year, or yeah, yeah, just read the whole book at least once a year, to put into proper perspective on how what you go through is all for God's glory. He don't waste no hurt. And if we try to question God's will, he will humble us. And it's not because he's forceful, and he's so big and bad, but it's love, it's grace. It's a certain level of just compassion, because he understands, because he has walked in our shoes. He has walked this earth. He's the son of man. He's the Holy Spirit. He's God all by himself. He experiences it, so he gets it. But trying to bash him or allow others to interpret what you have going on as if they know God's plan for your life, as if He called them and said, "Hey, this is why I'm doing that." Now, angels and prophets um, can give you heed, but verbatim, step by step, this is why your life is going this way and this and third. No, we can lead you to who will reveal um who what the plan is, but we don't know the plan. We can speak over your life to a certain extent. We're limited in what disciples are limited in what we can do. So trying to see another example from this year. I already mentioned Amazon, and I kind of have categorized that in my one video about Amazon, about that being my exodus. And now that I'm at the pawn shop, seeing still how God is still using me in the midst of the pawn shop too, like trying using me to be a blessing to others the best that I can, but also seeing people heart posture, seeing how everything don't require me to be all knowing of the situation, because being in alignment with God is just sometimes not saying nothing. Even Jesus withdrew from his disciples to pray. So sometimes is just being present and taking heed and just understanding the situation, and if acts from a heart posture that is very open to dialect, then, but outside of that, it's not really necessary. But um yeah, yeah, man, this and to kind of bring it home, um I feel like Amazon and being the sole proprietor of bills this year, mainly, those two has really been heavy hitters, especially holding down the household. And I'm not bragging. I'm bragging. I'm not bragging about myself. I'm bragging about God. And I can remember a few days ago when we gave the second half of like rent, um, and I told my wife, make sure you thank God for carrying us this year, because it is one of the biggest weights that a man can carry. Um, Holding down a household, fighting financially solo. Not saying that my wife that stood in this look, she did what she could, but she's in a season of her life, and it's heavy. It is heavy. Now, a decade ago, it probably wouldn't be as heavy, but in this economy, it is heavy. But it's by design, and I want to tell you why. God is going to put you in situations where He's needed. It's not going to put you in a situation where you can just do it. You're so big and bad. You're so all knowing. You're so all powerful that okay, over. I'm in. I'm out. Piece of cake, right? Nah. It's going to be things that go wrong that the grace got you through. It's going to be some things that go wrong that my prayer life got me through that. And most importantly, even but without that being said, only God, only God, but God can pull me through this. It's not Nothing that I can do to get me through this outside God's will, God's grace, and God's mercy. To just be so minimized. And that's why I say, like, I don't matter. Because outside of God's will, if God present me the opportunity to provide, if he wakes me up and I'm able, and I'm gonna always be willing if I'm able to provide, because if that's in the line, then blessings and provisions is gonna follow. Really, he really refined my mind with his title of Jehovah Jireh, the God that provides. He really aligned my vision with, okay, nothing that I don't care if I'm working 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs. So what? That's something that is a byproduct of who God is. I'm his child. And anybody who's a parent, you don't wake up and be like, well, I'm only gonna feed my child if they make up their bed. Or I'm only gonna feed my child if they brush their teeth. That's neglect. God is not neglectful. And I'm a broken vessel. I'm somebody that should have been out of the land of the living about 8, 9 years ago. But God is so awesome. He can use me, somebody who was entrenched, engulfed in pornography, somebody who was entrenched and lustful and was just doing whatever they were big and bad enough to do. He can take that broken boy and refine him into a disciple man. And all glory to him. And I'm grateful to have this platform, not because I want a million subscribers and I want you to like and share every video so that you can give me clout. It's so that I can be used accordingly, because I don't do these videos like it's a reason why there's gaps. Yes, I'm busy, but I don't want to give you content that is just you can just find, not necessarily anywhere, but it has to have fruit in it. It has to have substance. Like I don't, same thing that happens with like my music. Like I want it to be beneficial to you. If God's gonna use me, I have to be beneficial. I have to be useful. So I encourage you this year, guys. Well, for next year, to have a blank canvas. Don't have no New Year's resolution. Don't have no non-negotiables. And this is going. Now it's certain things where okay, um, I don't know, like you want to, I don't know, paint your house, or you want to get more black shirts, you want to get more white shirts, you want to get a new pair of like stuff like that. Yeah, okay, all right. Those are kind of like miscellaneous things, but the strong, fruitful things, like I'm gonna cut this person off, and nobody's gonna talk to me like that moving forward, and um, you know, even with losing weight, you know, be surrendered when you enter into 2026. Be surrendered, because God can't work if you keep moving his hand. If you keep moving his hand, or if you not don't, like he can't do what he does best. He can't. He can't if you keep moving his hand. So be surrendered. Be a blank canvas. Allow him to use you the way he sees fit. He's never going to misuse you. I want to encourage you here. He's never going to misuse you. He's never going to misuse you. You're going to be right where you need to be when you need to be there. And I can speak on that all day, because it's amazing how God, when you're surrendered, how hell he can work in you. Allow yourself to be realigned. Whatever it is that maybe You have not talked to God all 2025. Maybe you just been flying at the seat of your pants. Maybe you've been mad at God. Maybe you feel like God has forgotten you. Again, this is the trick of the devil. The same trick that he been playing since the garden, since the fall. It's the same playbook. The devil is very limited in what he can do. Remember that. Let me say it again. The devil is very limited in what he can do. Be realigned with the Most High. Be realigned with um what He has for your life. And if you're unsure, have conversation. Enter into prayer with an open heart, with a surrendered heart, asking God, please realign me with your will. May your will be done, Father, not mine. Cause my will is imperfect. My will is only gonna serve me momentarily. This is what I want for the moment. Give me what is infinite, something that is eternal for me. Like I encourage you, I challenge you to really ask for realignment. And lastly, the refining. If you surrendered, God work is going to be uncomfortable, but endure it. Allow His refining work to purify your soul, to go through jobs that is disrespectful, jobs where you want to just crash out, where you want to just flip the table, where you want to just leave and never come back. I'm not saying just allow them to just. I'm talking about just trample you. Speak up for yourself if need be. But if you have to, if you were like how, if you're currently like how I was at Amazon, where I had to cry, I had to wait, I had to endure it, I had to literally, when I got the job at the pawn shop, the manager of the pawn shop was calling me, and I was in the middle of crying and lamenting to God. This is a true story. This is not for cloud. This is not exaggeration. I was lamenting to God about, please, please remove me from this place. This place is self-serving. This place is don't have my best interest. This place is going, like just going through the motions, you know. And in the midst of me praying, doing what a disciple is supposed to do in times of uncertainty, in times where it's difficult, in times where it's just like I just don't know. The blessing came. And if God can do it for me, man, what? I'm telling you, I'm a broken vessel. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to have this platform. I'm not supposed to have this conviction to have started this podcast over a year ago. I'm not. None of this supposed to be transpiring, but that's how I perceive it. That's how the human mind works. But God is so greater. He's greater than all your highs. He's greater than all of your lows that you can even fathom. Like our mind is so limited to what God and to what God can do and who God is. So I encourage you to be obedient, to be surrendered, to be back in alignment, and to be refined going into next year. Allow God to work in your life. Have a clean slate. Have it like literally have both hands behind your back all next year, and be open hearted. Have a good heart posture to really allow God to work in you. And I'm gonna end this video here. Allow God to use you in a way that you don't have to explain yourself either to nobody, because those three things have really pointed out that when you transform, when you lock in with God, when you are back to back, people are going to misinterpret you. People are going to be like, man, this the same guy that or this the same girl that was. People are going to bring up your past, and this is the enemy. This is and it's going to be people that you would have never thought about doing that or saying that. It's bound to happen. If it happened to Jesus, it's going to happen to us. We stand no chance. We stand no chance. So again, I don't matter when hell is trying to break up the relationship. When hell is jealous of your covenant with God, off of all these three things, being surrendered, being realigned, and being refined, stay your ground. Stay your ground and don't explain it. It's not it's not for everybody to comprehend. It's not. The fact that I'm surrendering understanding why something is going on, or surrendering the understanding of trying to explain where somebody is confused at, simply tell people continue to watch God work. Continue to watch God work. That's it. That's it. That's all. You don't gotta. People. What does that mean? Oh, you think you holier than thou, don't you? You think you got it all together. Continue to watch God work. That's it. That's it. Because nobody has ever been you ever in a life at all. Not for a second. Not for a nanosecond. Nobody can never feel how you felt. Nobody can never comprehend what you have to go through, what God has brought you through, what God is bringing you through, what God is preparing you next to go through. So I'm going to leave it and end this video right there. Allow God to just work. Allow God to allow you to be surrendered, realigned, and refined. And if you have not started your discipleship, I really encourage you to do so. Is I want to say it's never too late, but now is a good time to start. And as always, y'all, I hope something was said, not just in this video, but throughout this entire year. If you have not watched none of my videos, now is a good time. Um, and I just encourage you moving forward to be a blessing, to be encouraged, and to be kind to people. You don't know what somebody's going through. You don't know where the breaking point and how close somebody is to like the edge. Cover people with grace, cover people with mercy when plausible. And people who are nasty in spirit, pray for them. Withdraw yourself from a moment of foolish behavior or destruction. As always, man, I love y'all. May y'all have a happy and blessed and fruitful 2026. And as always, this is your favorite DJ Scotty Tudati, signing off for 2025. Peace.